get to us.
Yeah, it sure is.
Right. But the bottom line is you have too much water hitting low areas too quick, and there's nowhere for the water to go. So places that never flood start to flood.
And then the cheaper people, I really don't have connections.
You know, like where I live in Titusville up in the dunes. We used to get rain. I'd never see water.
They might have some good input though.
Now it built up in your yard.
Well, no, I go down 16 feet of sand. I live
Thank you
at,
for listening. Of course.
Oh, that's
right, but it's, we have a retention pond. It needs to be dry.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Now, Cliff is not available today, so after the pledge, we'll ask for a nomination for a temporary TAC chair. So everyone, please rise and face the flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. From the TAC, do we have a nomination or a volunteer to act as temporary chair?
I will nominate Stephen.
Okay, do we have a second from the TAC? We have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Stephen, if you would come up here, and you can take over as TAC chair.
You have to leave the chair behind, though, when you're done.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. I did volunteer since Mr. Szabo is the vice chair and he's unable to join us today. So thank you for letting me serve. I look forward to a great meeting.
Well, welcome, Stephen.
And so with that, is there any public comment? Anyone fill out a speaker card for anything that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, looks like we can go on to the executive director's report.
Right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, everyone. Thanks to Hurricane Milton. It's been some time since we last saw each other, so it's really good to see everyone's faces. We want to introduce our new planner and staff member to the TPO family, Miss Patty Rendon. Would you please stand, Patty? There she is. So we're really excited to have her. She previously worked for Brevard County. She worked in the ILS program, and so we're just really thrilled to have her join our team. Her role includes working with transit. She'll be working with the Trails program and some with the Vision Zero program. And her position actually was Debbie Flynn's position. Debbie, after the TPO Governing Board approval, will be a new member of the Technical Advisory Committee representing the city of Palm Bay. So we get to still work with Debbie. So we're really happy to have Patty join our team. The draft Governing Board and Executive Committee meeting minutes from September the 12th is in your agenda package. Also included is the December project status and updates. And these are specifically TPO studies that are currently underway. These are studies that have been incorporated into our Unified Planning Work Program. From that list, the feasibility study for the Cocoa Intermodal Station is officially complete as of November. I know we gave a presentation on that study. So the TPO website contains all of the files, the final report, if you'd like to go in there and take a look at it, the public involvement aspect of it. So a lot of really good information, and the report is very impressive. HDR did that report for us. You may have heard that the City of Cocoa did not receive the Chrissy Grant Award for the final design and construction of our station. That grant was coming from the Federal Railroad Administration. We had high hopes, but the competition for these grants is fierce. And there are a lot more grants than there are money in that program. But the City of Cocoa has quickly pivoted, and they are pursuing another grant opportunity called the Federal State Partnership Grant for Intercity Passenger Rail. It's due on December the 16th. And the TPO is tasked with collecting letters of support, and we have received a lot of letters from our local governments. We're very appreciative. Our sitting congressman is very supportive, as well as our business community and our legislators in Brevard County. So we just have a tremendous amount of public support for the station, and so we will get it one way or the other. So we will keep moving forward. So, Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Very good. Thank you. And then we'll move on to the consent agenda. And looks like the two items on there are for the meeting minutes and for the 2025 meeting calendar. Do you have a motion from the TAC to accept the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Christy Fisher. Have a second?
I'll second.
And second by Devin. Over
And-
to the CAC.
And from the CAC, do we have a motion, please? Motion from Peter and second from Greg. Any conversation, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And to the TAC?
And so we'll go on
You need
to,
to call for a vote for the TAC.
oh, I think I did it already. I think I did it out of order.
No, that was a motion.
Oh, sorry, vote. Thank you for keeping me in line.
You're welcome.
You have a motion from, or vote from the TAC on the consent agenda?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Then we'll move on to item number 5A, which is the election of officers. I believe the TAC chair and vice chair are still interested in serving, even though they couldn't make it here today. But do we have any nominations for vice chair?
I'll make a motion for Steve to be vice chair.
Steve Zabo? Excellent. Any other nominations?
I'll second his motion.
All right. So we close the nominations. And can we just accept by acclamation? Since we no other volunteers?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and from the CAC, do we have any nominations? Peter?
I'd like to nominate Philip Weinberg.
Do we have a second?
I'll
Second from Greg. Any further nominations? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? And for vice chair, do we have any nominations? Or volunteers? Thank you, Bill.
Yeah,
Bill has volunteered to once again serve as vice chair. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And second from Greg. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Bill.
I wanted to make sure you were willing, Bill.
Well, we drafted him every year. It's okay.
Then we do, I think I skipped nomination for chair.
Yes, you did.
So, do we have any nominations for chair for the TAC? I believe Cliff is still interested in serving as well.
I'll nominate Cliff Graham for chair of TAC.
All right, second. Any others? All right, we can accept by acclamation. We're good? All right. And
Debbie, you
then-
must want to get home for Christmas.
And then moving on to item number 5B are our policy positions. Georgiana.
The next couple action items are mine, so I'll just stand up here. The 2025 Space Coast TPO policy positions, we adopt these positions every year. There are very minor updates, and these positions are consistent with the governing board's strategic plan, as well as the Florida Transportation Plan and our vision at the TPO. And we also, when we compile these these policy positions, we consider legislative positions from the Florida League of Cities, as well as other agencies as well. So we will do a very quick review, and you have, Abby has put a hard copy at your place. So I will start off with the top 3 kind of overarching priorities, and that is to increase funding for transportation that does not negatively impact the state transportation trust fund. Support the Vision Zero safety initiatives to reach 0 fatalities and serious injuries. And the third one is increase the resiliency and the efficiency of Brevard's transportation system by advancing technological network enhancements. And then moving on to the second page, it is the increased funding for transportation investments, and we have several listed here. The first check mark is to basically the Transportation Regional Incentive Program continues to be underfunded, and so we want that TRIP funding, is what we call it, to be funded at a predictable level. TRIP funding is funding for regionally significant roadways. It requires a 50% match. Either the TPO can match it, or a local government or a private company can match it, and we have used this funding source all over the Ellis Road widening project as well as other projects, but you do have to have a 50% match. But there's not enough money to go around, so we want that. We want the legislature to continue to fund that at a very high or predictable level. It fluctuates a lot, and the funds have been diverted out of that pot of money for other uses. The next check mark, is to develop a resilient network of transportation infrastructure and evacuation routes. The next one is establishes flexible and predictable funding for transit projects identified through the Metropolitan Transportation Planning process by removing the various funding limitations for the State Transportation Trust Fund. State law limits the amount of funding from the trust fund for transit for both capital and operating expenses. And so it's just really less predictable funding for MPOs to participate in any sort of transit project. The next one is to study potential revenue replacement options for the current motor fuel tax, which is no longer able to support the current or the future needs of Florida's transportation system. We've talked about this many times: increased fuel efficiency, the growing use of electric vehicles, alternative use vehicles. It means less money at the state and federal level, and we will continue to have this problem. The rising cost of construction alone, not to mention just the demand here in Florida for our transportation system. And then the last one is to charge alternatively fueled vehicles a fee equal to the fuel tax paid by gasoline or diesel-fueled vehicles, such as an EV registration fee. Of course, we don't have a crystal ball when it comes to EVs, and we are not really sure how that will continue to grow. We think that it will. But our legislature did dive into this during the last session, but it needs to be talked about and looked at for some options. So any or all of these things can definitely help us as we move forward. And then we have a benefit at the end of that section, which basically says, additional funds and greater flexibility is needed within the state funding programs to maximize the efficient use of resources and allow for the transportation investments necessary to serve our rapidly growing urbanized area and support the economic growth in our region. And at the bottom of page 2, it's about safety and innovation. We want to strengthen the existing pedestrian and bicycle safety laws, engineer and redesign roadways for appropriate speeds, expand the regulations on distracted driving. In other words, hands-free Florida is a good thing, would be a good thing. And then the next check mark is to support the advancement of innovative transportation mobility solutions and policies that make Florida the national leader in creative approaches to addressing transportation needs including autonomous connected electric vehicles, advanced traffic signals, as well as technologies not yet developed. And this is extremely important for our future as we move forward. And so then moving on to the last 2 pages, as we're coming to a close here, move over for people. And so we all know that Florida consistently ranks one of the worst states for pedestrian fatalities. Current Florida law protecting vulnerable road users is limited, to a 3-foot passing requirement for motorists approaching bicyclists, which really has been deemed unenforceable. And so this expands the current move over law to include people and protect our vulnerable road users, such as pedestrians, bicyclists, disabled individuals using mobility devices. So it's basically similar to the requirement for overtaking an emergency vehicle or a tow truck, an operator on the side of the road. And then we have a section here, TPO's priority transportation projects, which is a QR code for the listing of all of our priorities. Instead of just pulling out a few, they can scan this and go to our priority list. And as you see in this little diagram there, we have at the top spaceport, seaport, airport, bicycle, transit, automobile, micromobility, golf carts, walking, EV alternative fuels. It's the whole package. This is really how we're going to have a connected multimodal transportation system. And our priorities really includes all of those things. And then the very last page is our governing board. At the time, we still are not 100% sure who our governing board members are going to be. We have 3 new commissioners. And so as each one of the municipalities are having their council meetings and assigning membership to the governing board, I think we will find out on Thursday, for the most part, who our members are going to be. So these are the draft priorities, very minor changes, and we would like to take this to the governing board for discussion, and would love to get your approval. Any thoughts, comments, suggestions?
Thank you, Georgiana. Any discussion from the TAC?
Pete, you have a question?
Not really a question. When it comes to money, we're like a bunch of Hare Krishnas outside the airport with tambourines asking for spare change. There's no political will to dig in our pockets and come up with funding. So we always got a big wish list, and it's getting worse and worse every year. Do we have any updates on possible impact fees for transportation here in Brevard County, Georgiana, that you know of?
Not that I'm aware of. Again, with 3 new commissioners, I do have a briefing with one of those commissioners, one of the new commissioners tomorrow. I'm excited that they seem to have a really strong interest in transportation, and perhaps we can start having those conversations, whether it be impact fees or whatever. They need to understand what our challenges are, and I'm more than willing to sit down with them and talk to them about that, so perhaps they can have that discussion at the commission level.
I understand that one with a very strong opinion is going to be headed your way, and we're probably talking about the same person. And I know she's very interested in getting impact fees for our unfunded infrastructure, and that's at least a positive step. Now, another one that's interesting is District 2. I'm being a contractor involved in road construction, and I'm pretty sure he would have some intelligence on the necessity of getting transportation funding. So I'm starting to feel a little bit more positive about the direction we could be going into. And I just brought that up just to see if you have any news for us.
Stay tuned.
Any other questions? Christie?
Yeah, the question I have really has to do with what is the status of whether, the state wants to pass a fee equal to the fuel tax for the EVs and other things.
I think it was, there was a senator that introduced in the Senate a bill to impose I think it was a registration fee on EVs. And I think in the bill, it stated that 64% of the proceeds would be deposited into the State Transportation Trust Fund, and that the remaining 36%, would be allocated to the county in which the vehicle was registered, which, that's very interesting. It didn't pass. It really didn't go anywhere, but at least, it was being talked about. And so there, and that's really part of it, is just to start having those conversations. And I don't know what the answer is. Anytime, I guess, you impose a fee on something that does not exist currently, that can be a challenge. I'm sure, there's probably EV wars going on from that discussion all around, but we'll wait and see what happens this session.
Thank you.
I have no idea. No, I do not know.
All right, if there's no further discussion.
Pete, you had another question?
No, this is just a side note on the EVs, is right now in the state of Florida, if you bought an electric bicycle, there's no sales tax, plus you get up to a $1,500 tax credit, which is pretty major if you were to buy an electric bicycle, and that's probably going to end this year with the new administration coming in. So if anybody's even thinking about an e-bike, the limit is up $5,000 and up to $1,500 right off your income tax. So that, and they're offering 30%. So that's a pretty good discount, and it has nothing to do with taxes or anything like that. But if you want to get more energy efficient and dump your car, this might be opportunity.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none? Go for a motion.
All right, can we have a motion and a second for the 2025 policy positions from the TAC? Pretty please. We have a motion from Devin, a second from Veronica.
And from the CAC, do we have a motion, please?
Make a motion, District 1.
Motion from Adams, second from Gill. All in favor say aye. Aye, all opposed? And to the TAC?
All right, can we get a vote of approval from the TAC? All those acceptance?
Aye.
And opposed? Seeing none. We can go on to item 5C, approval of resolution and ratification of an emergency tip amendment.
Yes, so this is a housekeeping item. We had to process an emergency tip amendment for the Ellis Road widening project. This was a new project. Of course, we all know the Ellis Road widening construction phase is in our transportation improvement program. But there was a state appropriation that was received for early clearing and grubbing and additional right-of-way funding. And so the DOT programmed a new project for the clearing and grubbing for $1.5 million. It's in current year, fiscal year 25. And with a state appropriation, you must allocate that funding within the year you receive it. In other words, you can't just let the money roll into the next year and take your time in trying to spend the funding. And so this needed to be done fairly quickly. And as we know, the purpose of this is to really, begin the clearing and grubbing, potentially in a utility relocation, to get it ready for the actual construction phase, the widening of Ellis Road in fiscal year 26. And so that is what this project is. We did process it, but we always want to bring it back and ratify it with the committees and the board to make sure you know about it, that you agree with it, you understand it. And so that is what this project is. I will also, just because we're talking about Ellis, we are having conversations with Brevard County and the Florida Department of Transportation on a potential SIB loan. A SIB loan is a state infrastructure bank loan from DOT central office, where you would borrow the additional funding that would fully fund the construction in fiscal year 26, because we're like 26 million short now, and it would be paid back over time in the out year. And so these are very high-level conversations now that we're having. There's a meeting on the calendar coming up soon with all of our stakeholders, including West Melbourne and Melbourne, to kind of talk about those details. And so it's good news. You all know that we did not receive the second try of the infra grant from USDOT. We were shot down on that one. So this is just a way, we're running out of time. And this is a way that we can just get this thing fully funded and just get it done. And I think we're all ready to move forward and just begin the construction phase. So that's a side note, besides your approval of this emergency tip amendment.
All right, we can open it up for discussion.
I have a
Christie first.
The question I have is, how is it paid back? Is it the taxpayers, the local governments? I mean, who pays it?
Well, the conversation right now, and again, this is still very high level because we're not really sure what the interest rate or anything is, but potentially with the TPO funding in fiscal year 29 and 30, this is with the TPO's SU funding, that our governing board has authority over, and the department, money from the department. So it would be a combination of the two. So that is kind of the high-level plan right now. Again, there's been no paperwork drawn up. This is just the early conversations. Now, the question is who would actually be the applicant of that loan? Would it be Brevard County? Would it be the DOT? Someone has to actually be the applicant. But I'm very confident it will happen. We're as close as we've ever been to get this fully funded, so.
Adam?
Yeah, quick. I was going to ask about interest rates. You have already answered that question. Does that have an impact on our existing funds? Do we have to reallocate 10% to cover that or anything like that, or 50% or whatever?
We had not, the funding in 29 and 30, we have not programmed yet. And so we would not have to reallocate anything.
Okay.
So it would be in our reserve, it's funding in our reserve box that we have allocated in those 2 years.
Pete, you have something?
Yeah, I sure do.
Always.
In the old days, if the county had the extra money, they could build the road. And then when the money becomes available from FDOT would reimburse the local agency that built the road because it was funded. Now, this is a little bit different, correct?
Correct.
This is like we float a bond issue, buy the bond, pay interest, then when the project comes due, the DOT will give us the money and we can pay off the bond. Is that how we're looking at this?
Well, yes. I mean, I have not looked at how this is really, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure.
Well, we're
I don't
gonna
want
be
to say
paying
something
interest.
that.
Yeah, we're going to take a loan and pay interest regardless if it's bonded and then get reimbursed.
Yeah.
Or if loan the money, imaginary money from the state and just pay them interest till the time. And then I have a second question, a technical question. Typically, you don't clear and grub unless you encumber all the right-of-way. In this particular case, you said some of that money is for right-of-way acquisition, and that puts up in my, ding, 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 what's going on here? Are we clearing private property, or do we still need to buy land to build the road?
So right-of-way will be completely certified the early 2025, sometime in January. And it's really important. The department doesn't want that schedule to slip, because you're absolutely right. You know, that you can't move forward with clearing and grubbing if you don't own the right-of-way. And so the department is making really a lot of strong effort in offering, they've done all the appraisals, they've made offers. If they cannot come to an agreement, they would have to file suit. That has already been taken place. And so they're moving forward. And so they should certify that right away, be done by sometime in January, and then they can move forward with clearing and grubbing.
So we may see some equipment out there in a few months.
Yes, and unfortunately, I think a lot of citizens are going to think, well, thank God, Ellis is finally being widened, but it is just the clearing and grubbing, so there's probably going to be a lot of questions about that. But
Unless we take a loan.
Any other questions for Georgiana? Seeing none?
All right, can we have a motion and a second from the TAC to approve Resolution 25-09?
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Christie, second from Todd.
And from the CAC, can we get a motion, please? Motion from Gil and second from Bill. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Back to the TAC.
All in favor from the TAC?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, seeing none, we'll go on to our next agenda item, which is another TIP amendment. Georgiana?
all right, so this is the last one, another housekeeping item. This is Resolution 25-10. And this one, this is a project that is already in the Transportation Improvement Program, US 1 from Myers Drive to Crane Creek Bridge. This is in the cities of Melbourne and Palm Bay. The construction phase is $12.7 million, and this project, it's a cost increase, so it's not a brand-new project. It's resurfacing, bicycle and pedestrian enhancements, intersection lighting, streetscaping, which also includes part of a streetscaping project within the city of Melbourne for raised medians, directional medians at a couple locations. And so there was extensive public involvement. I know the department received a lot of comments from the public and tried to incorporate their desires into this project. But it is really a safety project that the city of Melbourne and the TPO contributed funding to make this resurfacing a project that it was really important to the community and to the citizens. So the cost increase was a little over $2 million to incorporate some additional improvements. And so we are asking for approval of this construction phase in fiscal year 25 for this project.
Thank you, Georgiana. Do we have any discussion? Questions?
Yep, Pete?
Yeah, hey, Georgiana, so us citizens, we show up at the meetings and we make requests, and we're actually listened to, where the department will spend extra $2.5 million to go ahead and build the amenities that we're looking for?
Well, I don't know if the department would spend $2.5 million, but I think just, cost increases in general across the board. Also, I think the city of Melbourne contributed a little bit more money to this project as well. There's $1.8 million of the TPO's SU on this project.
Yeah, that's an item I was looking at, the 2.5 million increase, and I just couldn't envision that the department, out of the goodness of their heart, would put that much money into.
They're pretty strapped for cash these days, pavement only, but they definitely really been over backwards in trying to listen to the citizens and kind of understand, what are the concerns with these directional medians, which was the concern. Anytime you have an access management type project, that can cause a lot of alarm for businesses, and so you got to navigate that in dealing with the public. So,
Well, crashes do go down with access management.
absolutely.
And businesses give you hell because you cut out the left turn into their property.
This is a very, a high crash pedestrian bicycle corridor. Am I correct, Sarah? I'm pretty sure.
But my initial feeling on the $2.5 million was the project was on the shelf too long, and inflation caught up with the project, and that's why it cost more money.
Yeah.
It wasn't that the department is being so good.
Any other questions for Jana? Yeah, Greg.
Yeah, Georgiana, in regards to that, I'm a little confused. Is this improvements to the project, or is it a combination of improvements and inflation?
I think it's both. I think it's both. The streetscaping project was really a standalone project that, and then you had a resurfacing project. And so the limits didn't completely add up, match up, I should say. And so the two were combined.
Understood.
And the back and forth between the City of Melbourne staff and the
Citizen
desires of
input.
the citizens, I think that there were some tweaks to it. The design phase had to be adjusted as well to incorporate the two. So it ended up, costing a little bit more money, but at the end of the day, you get a much better project. It's a lot of bang for the buck.
So you're saying it was basically amenity improvements that makes logical sense?
Yes.
But it wasn't like a year ago when we were talking, FDOT coming in saying, hey, the cost of these projects is increasing 20% due to inflation.
Well, the department has done that. They did it,
Yeah.
they're doing it all the time. Although I think I heard that some of the cost increase, some of the resurfacing projects are going down a little bit. I think I heard for the first time, but over a year ago, definitely they have talked to us about cost increases across the board.
I remember. Thank you very much.
Okay. Adam, you had something?
Do you know when this originally was
Oh, boy.
proposed? Was it 10 years ago, 8 years ago?
Not that long.
Oh, really? Is that recent?
We fund the
Yeah.
sorry, let me get a mic.
This project does have some history. You're right.
The application was received for a list of project priorities, and I believe 2020, it might have been 2021. And so that was when we triggered, actually funding the project. However, this project came from our initial road safety audits. Sorry, I blanked on I was going RSA and didn't want to send you guys an acronym. This project really was birthed out of our original road safety audits, which were conducted, 2015, around that period. So there's definitely history to it, but we didn't actually fund the project until the 2021 period, and we funded it for, the fiscal year 24 and 26. And so it's on schedule for when it was supposed to be on schedule. We just can't help what the inflation did.
Any other questions? Okay, back to you.
All right.
From the TAC, a motion from Todd. Second from Karen Black.
And from the CAC, do we have a motion, please?
Motion.
Motion from Adam, do we have a second? Second from Greg. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries.
All in favor from the TAC?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll go on to our next agenda item, which is Advanced 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan Needs List. Sarah.
All right. Good morning, Sarah Crom, Senior Transportation Planner with the Space Coast TPO. As many of you are aware of, we are currently updating our 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan. This is a required plan to be updated every 5 years that looks out 25 years into the future, or we attempt to look out 25 years in the future. So as part of the development of a long-range transportation plan, we develop what's called a needs list, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But essentially, a project needs to be on the needs list in order to move into the cost feasible section of the LRTP. And so this is really a vital foundation to building the rest of our LRTP. So I know many of you have seen this graphic before. It's really the basis of everything that we do. Is the LRTP is the foundation that we build off our planning and funding activities. And so a project is first identified in an LRTP. We then are able to move that project through our annual call for projects into our list of project priorities, and then eventually funded and being into the TIP. So the US 1 project we were just discussing is a prime example of it was identified in LRTP, put on the LOP, and then eventually funded in the TIP. So as far as our LRTP goes, as many of you know, we started it in the fall of 2023, developing and tweaking our goals and objectives, which really was carrying most of the goals and objectives from the 2045 LRTP forward. We considered existing conditions. We did part of this through outreach with our modal partners, stakeholders, municipal partners. Many of our TAC members were involved. And then we also did public outreach in the spring of summer, this past spring and summer. Then we've been working on actually taking all of that feedback and compiling the needs list. So what even is a needs list? It's a comprehensive list of basically all the transportation needs within Brevard County on functionally classified roadways or federal aid eligible roadways, because those are the roadways that we can actually make an impact on. The needs were identified through a series of stakeholder and public outreach events. So what is an example of a need? It's not, I really like this, or I really want this. It's really it's a need for your community. There's potential for additional freight truck traffic here due to private investment. Or this bridge will be considered deficient in 2042 and will need to be replaced before then. Or I need to be able to safely bike to my bus stop to get to my job. So the actual development process. First, we started off with our 2045 LRTP, and so we pulled out that needs list, reviewed it, then moved on to adding in any projects that were in our Transportation Improvement Program or FDOT work program, identified additional projects through a comprehensive plan review. And then, as I mentioned, we did a lot of stakeholder and public engagement. And so giving the opportunity for our municipal partners, our stakeholders, as well as also the public to add input and mention any projects that they feel are a need in order for them to move around our county. It's really important that while we're going through this process, we collaborate. We have a very robust number of stakeholders, not just because of our modal agencies, but we also have many municipal partners. We have many community organizations, and each of them have their own set of priorities and needs. The LRTP can really help us take all those priorities and needs and look at them and prioritize them in order to what's going to best serve our regional transportation system. Now, if a transportation project or effort is not included in the LRTP, it can cause delays to that project. So it's very important that we get it put in right now while we're actually going through the development of the LRTP. So as I previously mentioned, we went through a lot of outreach. We had a charrette with all of our municipal partners in January 2024. Steve was nice enough to host us out at Space Florida in February 2024, where we met with all of our modal and space partners. We had a workshop with our Bicycle Pedestrian Trails Advisory Committee where they had the opportunity to draw on maps and give us feedback in April. We did some outreach to underserved communities through the 922 crew in April, as well as also we conducted several stakeholder interviews for individuals that were unable to make the other engagement activities. Just a very brief snapshot of some of the agencies that we engaged. So what are the common themes that we heard from our engagement activities? We heard that there's housing challenges, that space freight needs to be a major consideration, that commuters from outside of Brevard County are coming into our county, so ensuring that we have those regional connections. Development of housing versus development of roadway timeframe alignment isn't lining up, where these major housing developments are coming in and the roadway improvements haven't been made. And then one of the biggest things that stuck out to us is people are looking for reliable alternative transportation. So after we did all that outreach, we went out and we met with the public. So we gave the public 4 opportunities in 4 different areas of the county to come out and talk to us and learn about the LRTP, learn about the Space Coast TPO, and provide input. We had it was 77, because someone signed 2 people in on one line. So we had 77 attendees, which is a huge public input especially for LRTPs. It's not exactly a very exciting project to advertise and get people to come to. So we were very happy with 77 people. We had a beachside, north area, central area, and south area workshop. We had over 101,000 people were reached via social media. And they were able to engage with our safety, on resiliency. They were able to put their input in where we should be prioritizing, where we should put our money towards. Highway projects, basically everything, they really had an opportunity to touch and learn about and provide their input. So what did we hear? Well, we heard a lot of things, but just kind of 5 very common bullet points that we did hear is there's major congestion on Malabar Road at the I-95 interchange and 528 towards Port Canaveral. Ellis Road, Minton Road, Wickham Road, State Road 405, and Malabar Road are very regionally significant. Development of the Cocoa Brightline Station is critical for our regional connection. A1A would be a good candidate for TSMO and technology improvements to help move people up and down that corridor quicker. And bicyclists want more east-west connections. So this led to the actual creation of a needs list, which you do have a copy of in your agenda package. We broke it up very similar to the way that we break up our list of project priorities. And so we start off with our strategic intermodal system. I don't think there was any surprises in what popped up as a need. As you'll notice that you do see basically every single project that's on our list of project priorities. So LOP 401, Ellis, State Road 401, State Road 528. But you're also seeing some improvements at I-95 interchanges, as well as also some widenings on I-95 as well. Next, we have our capacity and multimodal improvements. And so this is really looking at areas that are off the SIS system that need to be widened, or areas that are looking for major complete street improvements. So once again, you're seeing many projects that are already listed on our list of project priorities, such as Babcock, the multimodal station, Hollywood, 405. But then you're also seeing some new roadways potentially that could be developer funded, such as Spyglass Extension. And then this is just a continuation of the capacity and multimodal improvements. So once again, projects that we already know, Clear Lake, 524, A1A improvements. And then also looking at a lot of improvements and widenings on the St. John's Heritage Parkway, which some of that is already kind of in the mix. Next, we have intersection improvements. So this is really looking at getting a big bang for your buck on improving the intersection of a corridor in order to help people move more efficiently and safely through those corridors. So coming from our LOP, we have our Minton Road intersection improvements in West Melbourne, as well as also the State Road 519 Roy Wall intersection that we completed a study on. Something that popped up new this year was the Vieira Boulevard and Murrell Road intersection improvements. We will continue to acknowledge all of our master planning efforts. And so we have our Intelligent Transportation System master plan, as well as also our bicycle pedestrian master plan. And something new this year is we are now legislatively required to consider sun trails within our LRTP. So we will be referencing the sun trail system, which is its own separate pot of funding for very specific trails. Finally, the last section we have is our planning studies and complete streets section. So a couple of these projects are already underway. But then we're looking at, the county is interested in completing a Palm Bay Road, Minton Road, Emerson Drive intersection evaluation. Palm Bay is interested in doing a PD&E for widening Minton Road from Jupiter to Malabar, and so there are a couple newer projects on there as well. So where do we go from here? So right now we're at the draft needs list. It obviously is draft. We can massage it some still, and it really will stay a working document. We're going to go into the prioritization process here very shortly, which will then take us to developing the draft cost feasible plan. That's really the meat of the LRTP, is the cost feasible plan. That's where we actually take the needs list, we prioritize it, and we put our money where our mouth is, for essentially of where can we actually fund and move these projects forward. We'll then take the cost feasible out to public review. We'll kick it off in May with the TAC, CAC, and governing board meeting, and finally adopting our final 2050 LRTP in July. And with that, me and Nick, our consultant, are happy to answer any questions that you might have, or if you have any input on projects that you're not seeing.
I have a question. So with the Norfolk Parkway extension under your capacity multimodal improvements, the description is from Norfolk Parkway to Imagine Way, and that the city of Melbourne is asking for that? That doesn't make any sense. Are we talking about the flyover to go over the interstate and connect to Imagine Way? And why would the city of Melbourne? Todd, do you have anything you want to add?
That might just be incorrectly, the limits incorrectly discussed. Is maybe we need some clarification, Todd, on the Norfolk Parkway project that you guys are doing, the ACE. I'm sorry?
I can't hear you.
You've got right there, Todd.
No, the ACE is for, from St. John Heritage Parkway to the West Melbourne city limits. It does not include that section east of that. That's what the ACE is for.
So we can, okay, so we have that one under planning studies and complete streets. This one, the Norfolk Parkway Extension East was identified in the I'm sorry, I apologize, Christy, for misspeaking. The eastern section was identified in the 2045 LRTP. If it's no longer a project or wanting to be pursued, then obviously we can remove it from the needs list.
Yeah, and it's listed under Melbourne, which is odd. But the city of West Melbourne has never had an interest in that. It was a TPO that had an interest in that. We never had an interest in that.
Okay. Well, we can maybe set up some time to chit chat and make sure we're reflecting that appropriately.
It's probably my fault. I worked on the last one.
Yes, I should have had Stephen present no. Any other
Any other questions for Sarah?
And of course, if you go home and you look over this and there's something that you see or that you see is missing, please email me and let me know, and I'll be sure to massage it.
I have a question about the Washington extension. It says new 2-lane roadway. The city is actually looking at preserving 4 lanes of right-of-way for that in the areas that may be annexed in the future.
Okay,
So I just want to make you aware of that.
perfect, thank you.
Anyone else?
All right, well, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Next up is the 2035 Transit Development Plan. I think our consultant, Jeff Arms from HDR, is heading up.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me? Great. So we're at the very, very end of the transit development plan, and this is a brief presentation to walk you through what it is and some of the findings and results and where we go from here. A transit development plan is a 10-year blueprint, or it's the long range. It's a shorter version of a long-range plan, but it's for the transit agency specifically to help outline what the transit needs and opportunities are within the area that it's operating. It's required by DOT and in order to maintain funding. So the elements of the plan, it's really just about understanding the demographic analysis, how the existing system is performing, goes over the goals, it lays out an implementation plan, as well as some financial aspects. And we've had a lot of public engagement throughout the process. Just as a reminder, this group's well aware that the benefits of transit, it really is about the investment in transit does boost the economy. For every dollar invested, there's a $2 gain. A lot of citizens couldn't get to their jobs or their places like the doctor or shopping needs if it weren't for transit. So transit does enable people to live independent, fulfilling lives as well. So when we talk, there's a lot of goals of the agency, but just as a recap, they're outlined into these 5 categories: safety, multimodal, transportation, land use linkage, sustainability, and then a marketing component as well. The services that Space Coast Area Transit operates are fixed routes. They do have a demand response that's geared towards paratransit, van pool, and then there's the essential trips, which is the Volunteers in Motion that helps get people to medical, groceries, and pharmacies. When we're talking about the fixed routes, there's 23 in the system currently today. Most are 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. There's a few key routes that are past 10 o'clock, but not as much of the system. Most are typically an hour headway, but a few of the key routes are 30 minutes and even some closer to 20. This is just a recap of the outreach we had during the entire process. Met with a lot of subcommittees and some stakeholder interviews, and even reached out to bus operators, and we did onboard surveys. Some of the common themes of what was desired is really better connectivity, those multimodal linkages to sidewalks and accessibility, more frequent service, more direct service, and then better facilities at the bus shelters and stops. This is a recap of some of the changes to the fixed route service that were identified. In order to fully implement a lot of major changes to the systems, though, the agency would typically do what's called a comprehensive operations analysis, which would be a more detailed study of all the route changes. But here's just some highlights. There's a few routes that are being modified just by timing, and then there's 2 new key routes, one along US 192 from St. John's Heritage Parkway over to A1A, and the other one which would be an express bus that would tie into where the new Brightline intermodal station will be planned over towards the pier at Cocoa Beach. We also identified several planning initiatives that are going to be completed during the study, some areas that needed additional look. A lot of conversation about Barefoot Bay and how to provide transit access to that community, because a lot of the residents in that area really do head south into Indian River for their daily services. And then as you've probably seen presentations in the past, there's a mobility on demand study that's ongoing, and ultimately the next update of this will take into account the results of the mobility on demand results. We also identified several, the framework of a TDP has to identify fleet improvements as far as how many new buses are needed when the fleet is aging, so there's a lot of investment in trying to get the average age of the fleet a little bit younger. Improved bus stops, new technology, both on board the vehicles themselves, but also just the entire system. And then looking at the new transfer station near Cocoa to try to get some funding for the design and construction of that. Some policy and financial needs. The TDP helps lay out a lot of opportunities for grants in the future. FDOT is a great partner for helping to do a lot of new routes, where the state will provide some funds to get routes started, and then the agency and the local government's going to assess how they're performing and decide if they want to continue them. Going to continue the efforts related to outreach and marketing. is really a good social media campaign. I know we had commented there were some on the government TV channel, some advertisements that have been out there. So the agency awareness has definitely raised it. The Space Coast Transit has raised their profile in the community. And the key action items that the plan outlined was in the categories of planning, just to continue to do that further route analysis that I mentioned, the technology, taking a look at the fleet electrification opportunities as that technology does continue to mature and other transit agencies continue to adopt that. I don't think Space Coast Area Transit has tried to be an early adopter. They're trying to be aware and plan for the future. More and more local agency coordination, and then to continue to explore funding opportunities. So these outline the final steps. We do have a presentation to the governing board later this week, and then a presentation to the Brevard County Commissioners, or sorry, it's not a presentation, but it's scheduled to be adopted in January, and then has to be submitted to DOT by March. So with that, can answer any questions.
I have a question about the mobility on demand. What are the components of that, the pilot program?
I'm checking to see whether or not others want to answer the details of that one, since I'm not managing that study. Thanks, Laura.
The Space Coast TPO is conducting a mobility on demand study with Space Coast Area Transit. It's been going on for about a year now. I believe in February or so we'll be coming and presenting. Right now we're looking at different areas throughout the county, and we're going to be prioritizing which mobility on demand zone would be eligible or most likely to be selected for a pilot project. So we'll be getting that information out. And we just did meet with our stakeholders throughout the county, and we'll be following up with them. We have a meeting later this week, and we'll reach back out to them at which locations are looking like they're more likely to be the pilot project, because we want that to be successful. If we can get it in one area, it will be successful in other areas as we branch out in the future. So that'll be coming.
Yep. Pete?
When I was looking over the presentation, one line jumped out at me, and that's a new one, the express lane from the what you call the multi-mobile station to Cocoa Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, we subsidize transportation, but that one route looked like it could be a moneymaker. Is that how you looked at it?
We hadn't gotten into the details of whether it's really difficult for fixed route transit to be a true moneymaker, but we do see that it would fulfill, because Brightline would stop every hour. So if you time this timing of the Brightline stop and then those connections, it's much more affordable than having to run independent shuttles or Uber or Lyft. So it's a really great opportunity. It would have a stop at the port as well for those that are designed. Plus, it also makes it so people can get to jobs at these locations. Like we also think the intermodal hub will be another place for a lot of other job activity for mixed use commercial.
Yeah, I get all that, but you know, I advocate for Sunrail, which is a commuter rail, and this is not a Sunrail. So I thought it'd be a money-making route and not be in my pocket to ferry people that want to go on cruises from South Florida to our port, and that's what it seems like it is. And I was hoping that you could raise the rates to where we wouldn't have to subsidize it, and you know, all this other stuff like, oh, it's going to get people to work, da-da-da. Hey, I ain't into that. You know, I'm into what it is. You're coming from Palm Beach, you're going to jump on the shuttle bus and you're going to go on the cruise, because Brightline got into a partnership with the cruise line, and that's where most of the passengers are going to come from. They're not local. They're coming from West Palm, Fort Lauderdale. They're going to get on that and they're going to go someplace, a cruise, so they don't even stop at the Winn-Dixie and put some local bucks in our economy. They get on a cruise line and they're gone. And not that we can't make money, but I was hoping that would be a money-making route, and that was the only reason I'm bringing this up.
The other stops where there's a connections to the port, usually it's a private shuttle that's running that, and we anticipate there likely still would probably be a private shuttle that Brightline and the cruise companies may want to operate. It's just a little too premature to decide on the details of the funding. We got to finalize the funding of the intermodal station first. I'm actually managing that study as well, but once the intermodal station has been finalized, but we identified that it's going to be a new activity hub, and it's a great way to connect different modes of travel.
Adam Kohler, I'd like to commend you for being proactive and not waiting until that station was actually funded and they started working on it. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Richard Kohler?
I know in the past, Malabar's reached out to SCAT interested in having a stop somewhere along Malabar Road in our town. I know currently your guys' line dead ends at the Palm Bay Hospital on Malabar Road. We've got two community facilities, our town park and our town hall, right along Malabar Road in between that dead end and US 1. If there's ever any avenues you guys are interested in expanding into our kind of little neck, we'd love to make that happen and be in contact with you.
Well, there's a gentleman sitting right next to you that would be a good person to talk to continue that coordination.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Anything else?
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, next up is FDOT report.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Chuck Hoppenall with the Florida Department of Transportation, and I'll be giving the FDOT report. First off, I hope everybody's having a good holiday season, especially now that we're out of hurricane season. The FDOT District 5 met this challenge of Hurricane Milton by doing something that was never done before, doing the entire cleanup recovery effort in-house. The 60 maintenance teams from the 6 operation centers, along with partners from District 2 sending us 70 maintenance teams, as well as District 6 sending us 4 maintenance teams, we were able to clear 35,000 cubic yards of debris from alongside of 1,800 plus center miles of highway, both federal and state. Next, I would like to discuss the tentative work program. Public hearing. This public hearing occurred last week from January 2nd to January 6th. 24 hours a day of that week, it was all virtual, but there was also an in-person open house on Wednesday, January 4th, at the District 5 office. Even though the public hearing has concluded, the tentative work program can still be viewed at the address shown on this slide, along with the QR code that'll take you directly there. And comments are still welcome up until December 20th. I'll go ahead and leave this slide up to talk about the first cycle of committee board meetings that are coming up next year in 2025 in February. Based on the approval of the board, the plan is to come on the February meetings, and representatives from program management will be in attendance to give a presentation on the tentative work program. Along with them will be also representatives from planning who will give a PD&E update on the State Road 524 and the 405 projects. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report. I would just also like to mention that the current construction report is in the agenda packet, and if you have any questions on any specific projects, you can always see me after the meeting or contact me directly. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions, comments? Great report, thank you.
All right, thank you, folks.
Thank you, Chuck.
Next up is the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board report.
Good morning. The Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board met on November 18th. The TDLCB approved the annual operating report and the 2025 meeting calendar. Terry Jordan spoke about annual transit productivity and performance measures. Our fixed route ridership for fiscal year 2024 totaled $1,811,000, reflecting a 4.14% increase over the prior year's ridership of $1,739,000. Jeff Arms also gave a presentation, consultant for Space Coast Transportation Organization, presented a presentation on the Transit Development Plan. Jeanette Estes gave a presentation on State of Florida Person with Disabilities, and Christopher Gongolo gave a presentation on Family Partnerships of Central Florida. The next TDLCB meeting is scheduled for 10:30 a.m., February 3rd, in the Vieira Government Center in the Florida Room. That concludes my report.
Excellent, thank you. Any comments or questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the Bicycle Pedestrian Trails Advisory Committee report. Sarah?
All right, the BPAC met on October 28th. As part of Mobility Week, they received a presentation from Best Foot Forward. And then following our actual meeting, we went out and we did an on-street sign waving event, which I'm sure Abby has pictures of in her report. And so it was really great to actually take the committee and actually get out and be advocates for ensuring that pedestrians are able to safely cross the street. Our next BPAC meeting will be January 27th at 5:30 p.m. at the Vieira Government Center. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Sarah. Any comments or questions for Sarah?
Yeah, Pete?
Not a question, Sarah. I would just like to point out that at the trails, discussion is starting about doing a trail right up the spine of Brevard County where it can meet the trails up north that go everywhere. And we feel that all the citizens of Brevard County should be able to access those trails and spread out over the whole state of Florida. And that's something that's severely lacking, is to have a connecting trail that runs right up Brevard County into the north area where the trails from all across the state come together. And that's something that we're starting to look at.
Thanks, Pete.
Anyone else?
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next is our public engagement report. Abby?
It's a little tall. Good morning. Before we chat about some of our recent public engagement activities, I just wanted to recap a few things about our staff members. Sometimes we're not our own cheerleaders, so just a few things going on with our staff. Over the last few months, members of our staff have been recognized both locally and regionally for accomplishments, and these include our Board Services Administrator, Zoe McNeely, recently completed the Empower You program. I've been recognized by Lead Brevard as a top 12 finalist for the 4 Under 40 program, and our senior transportation planner, Sarah Crum, recently served as a speaker at the very impactful and heavily attended Florida Bicycle Association Summit. And so I call these out specifically because these achievements are really a testament to the TPO's support of its employees pursuing professional development opportunities. So this is a time of year where we always review our wins from probably the busiest outreach season that we have throughout the year. The month of October is very, very busy, not only for our agency, but for many communities. It's getting cooler outside. There's more community events happening. So just to recap a few, the TPO participated and supported multiple outreach events to raise awareness about specific traffic safety items. And so we did a lot of fall outreach events. Our public involvement team really wanted to focus and have a large presence throughout Brevard County. So from Malabar to Titusville to West Melbourne, we really wanted to make sure that we had a presence at community events, specifically to raise awareness about traffic safety for not only school-age children who attend many of these events, but also for our adults. So it was really fun passing out, reflectives, bike lights, safety goodies, and a special note up here that was probably one of my favorite events of the year that I felt was very impactful. We joined the National Federation of the Blind local chapter here, the Melbourne Space Coast chapter, for an inspiring White Cane Safety Day event that they held in Palm Bay. They crossed the 24-lane intersection of Palm Bay Road and Babcock Road. If you know that intersection, it's one of our most dangerous here in Brevard, and they crossed that square twice. And the reason that they held this event was really to raise awareness about the white cane and how it's a symbol of independence and mobility for them. And so we had more than 20 visually impaired community members bravely cross that high traffic area twice. We had Palm Bay PD there, which was fantastic. We also partnered with the Brevard Hispanic Center, and we were really proud to participate in this event. If you see here in this photo up on the right, we got some news media attention from Florida Today, and the TPO participated by making sure that every one of our partners here had a high visibility safety belt that now that they can wear out in the community as well, just to make sure that they're extra safe and seen. And so it was really an incredible event. I believe that kind of not only about the message of safety and accessibility, but it really opened up some doors for us, I think, as an organization to reconnect with this group. They experience challenges very differently from us in transportation infrastructure and traffic safety. So we're excited to continue that relationship. And then moving on to Mobility Week, it was extremely successful. Once again, we really had looked for a few different ways to celebrate this year. So as Sarah had mentioned, I'm just going to call out two specific events that were really great. We worked with Best Foot Forward to have our BPAC members and attendees go out, take it to the streets on Stadium Parkway, right behind the Brevard County Government Center. They lined Stadium Parkway at dusk, mind you, and we were reminding motorists to yield for pedestrians. So we had sign waving. We actually had some brave souls step out into the crosswalk to make sure that people were actually stopping to test yield rates. So it was very eye-opening, I think, for some of our members. We also had VR Voice there, which was really cool. They were able to cover that event for us. So just some shout outs to some of the partners who joined us, the UF IFAS Extension Service, Brevard County Government Human Housing and Services, City of Rockledge, City of Palm Bay. We had citizens from Melbourne and Cocoa, FDOT D5 office, and of course Space Coast Area Transit. They're a huge partner of ours for Mobility Week. And then another memorable event, this is probably my second favorite one of the entire year. This was a new event for our organization we piloted with a community that helps the unhoused. And so we worked with Matthew's Hope. We were honored to support their incredible guests that they have at their location there in Cocoa. We gave them vital safety gear to keep them safe and seen on our roadways. And so this was kind of a pilot project for us. We partnered with Health First. We have some partners from the Health First Trauma Center and also the FDOT D5 office. Our team fit 36 free helmets. We distributed hundreds of high visibility safety belts, Mobility Week bags, first aid kits, light up bracelets, bike lights, you name it. This community often has limited access to these safety items. And so we really wanted to bridge that gap and make sure that that we can help a community who really uses these items on the daily. So it was really an amazing event to be a part of, and we're looking to continue that in both the north area, Brevard County, and south area as well. And then just to kind of close it out, hopefully you saw some of our posts that we had done for World Day of Remembrance. Unfortunately, we couldn't hold an in-person event this year, but we did launch a social media campaign from the 17th to the 25th of November, where we recognized World Day of Remembrance for road traffic victims. We launched a social media campaign where we invited families to share the stories of their lost loved ones and really highlighting who they were in life and not in death. And so this is a really important initiative for us because it humanizes these statistics that we see almost daily here in Brevard County. And so this campaign received some attention. Of course, the families were sharing these stories as well. So it's our hope next year to get back out in the community and host an in-person event, maybe partner with law enforcement or our municipal agencies to make sure that the awareness is not lost and that ultimately this ties back to our mission of Vision Zero. And then to close out the year, of course, we're heading into the holidays. And so we know that we always typically see an increase in crashes. So we're going to be doing all that we can on social media, working with our law enforcement agencies and, again, our municipal partners to make sure that we highlight the importance of riding home sober and making sure that we're safe out on our roadways. And we'll be launching a few campaigns following the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, talking about the importance of making sure that we're safe behind the wheel. And that's all I have.
Any questions for Abby?
I just wanted to commend you for, well, not you specifically, but your team for making a big deal about the white cane. I live up in Titusville, and normally I hear about stuff that we're doing through the communication channels, because I'm on the board, I serve here as a part of the thing. But I got information from other venues in regards to that, even though it was being held way down in the southern part of our county. So my hat's off to your committee. I also wanted to commend you for recognizing those people that were killed. That was something I've never seen here before, so pass that on.
All right.
Any other comments or questions for Abby? Sir?
I have a comment. Companies like the Vieira Company, who control roads, in fact, right down from the courthouse on Stadium Parkway. Down from the courthouse on Stadium Parkway, there's an extremely dangerous situation. Our neighborhood, Fairway Lakes at Duran, where people are pulling out. There's an 8-way stop, or an 8-way intersection. It's crazy. People are, turning from multiple directions. There's no light there. So my question is this: what can we do about, companies like the Vieira Company who have built these intersections without lights or stop signs, right, for that matter, essentially, and you're essentially on your own when you try to pull out. And this isn't the only example of it. I can give you multiple examples of where you have these dangerous situations. Is there anything we can do? I was told by Rob Feltner that they have no jurisdiction over these individual companies that build these roads and are responsible for these roads. So I'd like to get your comment. Is there any option here?
Well, I can't really speak to that. I can only speak to the education piece. Devin? Devin, Dana?
Thank you for bringing that up. Right over here. Let's get together afterwards and talk about where it's at, so
Okay.
I can see, and I'll get it to the folks that we need to look at it if we need to do a study for it.
A study was done,
Oh, there was.
yes.
Where is it exactly again? Fairway?
Fairway Lakes at Duran. It's right down from the courthouse, the first neighborhood.
Judge Fran or Stadium?
I'm talking about on Stadium Parkway. Okay, if you remember, they were talking about the pedestrians crossing that day right by the courthouse. If you just walk down a little further, the first development on the right is Fairway Lakes. So that's what I'm specifically talking about. But also even walking, addressing, people trying to cross that street to get to the avenues. That is another issue. There's no walking lanes or no delineation in terms of where people should walk or turn, or, so it's, everybody I talk to is saying there's going to be a fatality there. Somebody's going to get killed. It's a really dangerous situation.
Well, I think you're correct. We'd go maybe get a study done. But
Okay.
I can tell you the Vieira Company works with the county. That's a Brevard County road. It's not a Vieira Company road any longer. It's been turned over.
We weren't told that. We said Brevard County apparently has no jurisdiction over whether a light will go there. A traffic light will be $2 to $3 million to put in, right? So an extremely large, high amount of cost to put a light in. But apparently the county doesn't have any control over that. It's Vieira Company who has to pay the money to do that. That's what we were told, so.
I could be wrong, but it's a county road. If there's a study done,
Yeah, let's look at it and see where it's
Okay.
at. But Stadium Parkway, she's correct, is a county road.
Okay.
Now, is that Valhalla that goes in there? Is that the name of the
Yeah.
road? Okay.
Yeah.
I know where it's at.
You know where Urban Prime is? That road that connects the Urban
Town
Prime
Center.
to Stadium Parkway. That really created the problem. When that was put in, that complicated things exponentially in that intersection, so.
I don't know if there's been a study there, so let's look
Okay,
into it.
let's talk, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may interject clarification there, you're saying that Vieira Company said, well, there's nothing they can do. When they build the road, is when you're talking about.
Right.
Once the road is turned over to Brevard County, it requires a study from Brevard County, and then if they feel it's warranted, they actually issue a warrant to put on a light at that intersection. So it's up to the county at this point.
Okay, but who pays for that? Who pays for the light?
The county.
Okay, all right. Okay, there's a disconnect there. Okay.
Yeah, it's out of the Vieira Company's hands. They have nothing to do with it at this point.
Okay, very good.
All right, thank you, Abby. Our last item is local government report. Does anyone have anything they'd like to report on? Seeing none, that brings us to adjournment.
Okay, before we adjourn, I want to thank everybody for participating all year. It's been a long year. It's been a lot of things going on, but everyone have a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and hopefully we'll see you all again next year. So thank you.
No meeting in January, just a reminder. So we'll see you guys in February.
Yep.
Happy holidays. Merry
Safe and happy holiday season.